Welcome to the kickoff for the final night of Progress. Before we hear from our speaker tonight, we'll hear a few introductions, kicked off by Chairman of the Phi Kappa Tau Foundation, Wes Fugit.
Hello, welcome to the final evening of Progress. I hope that you're enjoying Progress as much as I have. I've been so impressed by the speakers, volunteers, and participants' enthusiasm for this program. I'd like to start by thanking all of you. Thank you to our volunteers, the deans, the chapter advisors, the National Council. Thank you for making this program happen. The fraternity doesn't exist without your dedication and support. To those who have spoken, thank you for preparing well-researched and thorough content. Your experience and point of view is vital to providing the information young brothers need to achieve success. To our participants, thank you. Thank you for taking time to join us. Thank you for investing in your leadership journey, your chapter, and yourself. To have strong chapters, we need strong leaders such as yourselves. When Progress concludes, I hope you go out and fulfill the vision of the fraternity to improve your campuses and the world. Like you, Phi Tau has played a meaningful role in my life. It has given me lifelong friendships. It has challenged me and has helped me to grow as a leader and a man of distinction. I hope those of you experiencing Progress will someday consider giving your time and treasure to support the next generation of Phi Kappa Tau brothers, as those who came before you have done. Tonight, our final night, you will hear from our National Chaplain, Dave Lipinski, on why ritual matters. He will set the foundation for this week of Progress by speaking on the core of who we are as an organization. Dave will lead you through his program, A Ritual Way of Life, to remind us all of why we're here and why we joined this brotherhood. From there, it's fitting you think about the future. Ask yourself, what are these values calling you to do? What are they inspiring you to do? You've already heard from Dean John Mounts on the importance of OKRs. Tonight, you will get that down on paper in the form of a goal-setting session. Then, we will experience a virtual officer installation led by National President Bill Brash to welcome the newest generation of Phi Tau leaders. Finally, we will close the evening with National Vice President Dale Holland on the importance of brotherhood and its relation to our ritual. He will challenge us to ask ourselves, what are these bonds of brotherhood and why do they matter? Dale reminds us that the brotherhood and fraternity we experience is a lifelong commitment, and the leadership skills we gain together follow us into the rest of our lives. Thank you for joining us for Progress. Go far.
Good evening, brothers. I'm Buzz Green, a brother in the fraternity. I was initiated at Indiana University, and I am the founder of the Delta Gamma chapter at the University of Mississippi. It is my distinct pleasure to talk to you today a little bit more about ritual and its importance, particularly to me. I've been a member of this fraternity for, I think it's 55 years. I may be one of your elder statesmen. But I want to tell you how it affected me and has caused me to be very active in Phi Kappa Tau for the last 55 years. And it had to do with going through the ritual. At my chapter, they did something that not everybody does, and I think you might want to consider. At that time, they asked me to write my own oath to the fraternity. I was told that this would follow me for the rest of my life, that they would seek to enforce it. I was left in a room by myself to write my oath. I was then told that the brothers would decide whether it was good enough to be in Phi Kappa Tau. I'm here today because of that oath. I have pledged to you that I will serve this fraternity until my dying days. And hopefully, even when we get to that greater place, that I will be with the rest of you at some point in time. The ritual is important because it's a plateau of membership in this fraternity. It binds us all. It's that commonality that we have that we can share. It's so important that you understand that it must not be taken lightly because it is your pledge and your oath and your duty to this fraternity as a brother. Brotherhood can do lots of wonderful things together, but understanding that bond that we find out when we go through the ritual is so important. It'll help you for the rest of your lives and to be good brothers in this wonderful fraternity. I thank you for this opportunity. I wish you well in this program and make great progress as we go forward. Have a good evening.
Good evening, and welcome to the final night of Progress. Once again, my name is John Mounts, and I'm a 1990 initiate of Omicron chapter at Penn State University, and it is my honor to serve as one of the education deans for the fraternity. When we first conceived of Progress, one of the key components we wanted to explore was the connection between ritual and leadership. I have worked for over 25 years in higher education with student organizations, fraternities, and sororities. And the one thing that truly sets fraternities apart from any other kind of student organization is the ritual that provides the foundation for everything we think and do as fraternity men. So we wanted to make certain that we provided a session that helped each of you explore the concept of ritual and how to use our cardinal principles in your role as a chapter leader. We hope you find tonight's session both interesting and enlightening. We also realized that we needed a special individual to share his thoughts and insights into this topic. There are few Phi Tau's better prepared for this conversation than David Lipinski. Dave was initiated into Omicron chapter, Penn State, in 1974, and he has served as an advisor to the chapter since graduation. He has also served in just about every single alumni volunteer role that Omicron chapter has to offer. Appointed to 2 separate terms as Allegheny Domain Director and elected as a National Counselor, Dave is presently the Chief Ritualist of the fraternity. He has participated in numerous conventions, conclaves, leadership academies, and charterings. Dave retired from his first career with the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections Operational Bureau and presently serves as a full-time consultant for that agency. But then Dave started his second career, that of an ordained Catholic deacon serving his parish in State College, Pennsylvania since 1996. We've lost count at the number of Phi Tau weddings and baptisms he's presided over in that time. Married to his lovely wife, Diane, who quite frankly has put up with an awful lot of Phi Taus over the years. He's the father of a fabulous daughter, Cynthia, and grandfather to Steele, Levi, and Asa. His peak Phi Tau experience, he says, was assisting with the initiation of his grandson, Steele, into the Epsilon Rho chapter at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Tonight, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our Chief Ritualist, winner of the Palm Award, and my very own chapter advisor, David Lipinski. Take it away, lad.
Good day. My name is David Lipinski, and I'm happy to be part of our program of Progress, leadership training for the future of Phi Kappa Tau. Leadership training has been a hallmark of Phi Kappa Tau for its entire history. I well remember myself as an undergraduate attending a program called Impact. And throughout that time, it's been a way of teaching and training our new leaders, but at the same time, not just be leaders in our fraternity, to be leaders in their community, no matter where they go or who they meet. Today, our training that I'm happy to present is on ritual, a way of life. Ritual, a way of life. Now, if you talk about ritual, many people think about a church service, which is one, or maybe an academic ritual like graduation, and they're both examples of ritual. But we have ritual throughout our lives, from the most mundane things we do to the most sacred. And this ritual is a way that we express ourselves. We say what's important and how we wish to live our lives. And when we take ritual seriously, the meaning behind it, if not the actions themselves, then we truly show who we are and what we believe. There's a quote, "Ritual binds a community." Ritual binds a community. And the rituals a particular community have define who it is and what are they about. Now, this particular quote is by somebody called Benedict of Nursia. For those who don't know who Benedict was, he was a saint of the Catholic Church, lived at the end of the 4th century, and he founded monasticism in the Western world. Most of the monasteries since that time have been based on the rules that Benedict put forward. Now, one would say, wait a minute, you're talking about a monastery and we're having training to be leaders in a fraternity. Well, there's a lot of similarities between a monastery in its essence and what a fraternity often is. A monastery is organized for a common purpose, for a reason. Membership was by invitation. You might ask to join the monastery, but they had to be willing to accept you. And when you entered a monastery, you went through a period of training. It's actually called a novitiate, to learn about the monastery, its rules, its rites. Why is it there? That's called its charism. You're organized as a group. You ate together. You often slept in a common area, and you elected your own leaders. You lived by a rule. You lived by a set of principles, and it was a commitment you made throughout your life. So in many ways, that's what our fraternities are about. They are a community of men united together for common purpose, for the support of each other, and to live out the cardinal principles that we hold dear to Phi Kappa Tau. Now, when we talk about ritual, you can talk about what I call a large R ritual or a small R ritual, because there's differences between the rituals that are part of our life. Some are minor, but some are much more significant. An example, what I call a small R ritual, might be the way you go through life in the morning. You know, when I wake up, the first thing I do is brush my teeth, then I shave, then I shower, then I dress, and have breakfast. You get one of those out of the order, it gets a little confusing at times. Those are the small rituals that we go through life, and we all have them, and we have them in communities too. But what we want to speak about today are what I call the big R rituals. Because a big R ritual fundamentally changes who you are and what you are about. It almost always shows a change of status, a change in many ways of identity. If you're a Christian, your baptism was a large R ritual. You look the same after the water's been poured or you've been immersed, but you're a different person as a follower of Jesus Christ. Graduation. You know, do I have to go up on stage and get a diploma to graduate? No, but the graduation ceremony marks the achievement you reached in completing that course of study. A wedding is a sign of a ritual. The two people who are married look the same after the ceremony as before, but they're different. They're now a united couple. There are different ones of this, and what's important to us is the initiation and the other rituals we have in our fraternity. Because the person looks the same afterwards. The person never is the same afterwards, especially after being initiated as a member of Phi Kappa Tau. So when we talk about rituals, it comes down to, do we consider them trivial or important? Do we take them for granted, or do they mean a lot to ourselves? When we do ritual, do we do it mindlessly? I mean, me in the morning, my small R ritual of getting ready for the day, that's a pretty mindless thing. And it really doesn't have a lot of meaning in my life. It's just a way of getting through the morning. But there are other things I do on a regular basis that mean a great deal to me. And those rituals I hold dear to myself. And are they common or are they profound? Common or profound? Every fraternity chapter has its own smaller rituals. They're little things they do, and there's nothing wrong with them as long as they show respect to each other and don't cause any problems. But the big R rituals that we have, our association ceremony, our initiation ceremony, our funeral rite, they are profound in the effects they have on the person undergoing the ritual and the chapter itself and the fraternity as a whole. So when we talk about ritual, it's what is it, what does it do, and how do you do it? What is it, what does it do, and how do you do it? Those are the three things, because they tell us within that what is within a ritual. So first, let's talk about what is it. It could be a ceremonial act, a religious service be an example of that. A graduation ceremony is another example. Your brother's meeting is a ceremonial act. It could be an established form or act, the way we do things always. Going back to a brother's meeting, we have a set way that you open the meeting and a set way that we close the meeting. And those aspects of the meeting are limited to those who are initiated in fraternity. And also conforming to custom or law. So that's what it is. But what does it do? What does ritual truly do? And in that, the first thing ritual does is it reveals. It reveals what's core to a person or a group understanding and meaning in life. To we in Phi Kappa, it's our cardinal principles. To people of different religious persuasions, it's the creed, their dogma, it's who we are. And quite often, as in many church services, you proclaim what you believe every time in service. It reveals a lot about you. The other thing it does is it recognizes. Quite often a ritual recognizes you either for a current status or a new one. Again, I'll go back to a new president comes in office, the inauguration ceremony acknowledges that there's a new man in charge. Each of those things, when they recognize, are not only recognizing to the individual who goes through the ritual, but to all those who view it or are involved with it. And they acknowledge that new recognition within it. It also reminds us. I would say to any brother who has witnessed the initiation after his own, as you watch that initiation going on, it's reminding you of when you went through that same ceremony. It's almost nostalgia in many times. And though I've seen literally hundreds of initiation ceremonies, there's still a part of each one that reminds me of something that occurred or my own initiation back in 1974. And also quite often in ritual, it renews. It renews. It renews the spirit that's behind the ritual. It renews the dedication that led you to live that ritual. It renews what the ritual was called to be. A message, a meaning. And again, I'll speak to our initiation ceremony as much as I can. There's an oath that's taken during it. In some chapters, it's not uncommon that the entire chapter renews that same oath at the same time. It's a way of being renewed also into the meaning it means to be a brother of Phi Kappa Tau. So, how do we do it? What is involved in ritual? Well, first off, quite often there's vesture. Let's just say clothing or costume. You know, sometimes it's like, well, why do we wear this gown? Or even, you know, in a church service, why does the priest wear that vestment? Or why do we have to wear this gown at graduation? Well, vesture is often used to set the stage or to give context to what the ritual is about. It's also an important thing with vesture, and I'll give an example. With a vestment that might be worn by a clergy person, is the truth that that person may be proclaiming is not based on the worth of the individual. No, it's based on the truth. The individual himself may be flawed, but when they're acting in that role, or acting in that role in an initiation ceremony, that's not Bob or Jim or somebody else that you know. It might be, oh, this is the reason we're a member. This is why we do what we do. So we use vesture for that. We also quite often use a posture. Posture, standing, sitting, walking, kneeling. Quite often in rituals for fraternal groups, it's not uncommon that the person going through a ritual has to move from station to station or around. And then that part of the ritual is because a ritual quite often is about a journey. How am I progressing through life? So I move and I gain knowledge, and I might gain other things along the way. And in fact, quite often in ritual, you receive a treasure. It might be a diploma if you graduate. It might be a class ring when they graduate a military academy. There's different things you might receive as it. You may receive it only for the ritual itself. It may be part of the action that you have to have a piece of treasure or find something as part of it. But the real treasure is what the ritual is meant to edify, what the ritual is trying to teach you, what the ritual is trying to open you up in your heart. And then it comes to structure. You know, sometimes I've heard people say, you know, why do we have to say exactly that word? Or why do we have to do it exactly that way? You know, it'd be much more intimate if we can kind of, well, here, have the general idea, but let's make it up. Make it special to us. And this, unfortunately, is a problem we sometimes have in our chapters where they decide to localize the ritual, either by conducting a ritual outside of the Phi Kappa Tau one, which is, you know, what their special thing is, or even taking the Phi Kappa Tau ritual and making changes because, you know, that's the way we like to do it here at Chapter Omega or whomever we are at that time. Well, the structure is there for continuity. And individual chapters, individual groups, individual organizations don't have a right to change a ritual. The ritual belongs to the entire organization, the entire fraternity. It's one of the key things we hold in common together. And in many ways, it's the one thing we hold in common together is the ritual we go through. So if you want to change it to suit yourself, you're not really changing the ritual, you're ignoring it. You're pushing away, you're saying our way is better. And that's not the sense of what ritual should be about. Does ritual change over time? Certainly it does. The Catholic Church used to have its services all in Latin. 60 years ago, they made the decision to have it in a vernacular, the common language. It's the same ritual, they just made some changes to make the ritual better for all those who will participate in it. And how well do we participate? How can you participate in ritual well? Well, there's 4 aspects that have to be there if you're going to participate in ritual well. First off, there's preparation. Preparation. If you're going to conduct ritual, 1, you should have read it ahead of time to know what the roles, assign the roles, know what the roles entail, have the proper equipment, be ready to do it. Anything done ad hoc is usually done poorly. And the preparation could be from where will it occur, who will be involved, what are the circumstances that would be involved, what are the other influences that might be there, who do I want to participate? So you have to be prepared. You also have to persistence. Persistence. Our initiation ceremony limits the number of people that can be initiated at any one time. And it does that for a purpose, so you don't get lost in the event. So each person, hopefully, can experience the rituals we do. Now, sometimes that leads to situations like when a new chapter is installed or a large associate class becomes members, where you might have to conduct the same initiation ceremony 5, 10, 15, 20 times. Well, it's difficult to have all of them be perfect. It's difficult to have any one of them be perfect. But what you have to seek is perfection in each time you do that, because each of those rituals you conduct, no matter how trivial it may seem at the time, is an item about truth of who you are and what we believe. So we do the best we can, as well as we can. And sometimes there's problems, and sometimes we have mistakes. But the intent is to do it the best we can each time. And I say that for a reason, because especially in an initiation ceremony, that's the only time a person is going to go through that and be truly initiated. It's a one-time experience. A sign of respect is to have that experience be the best it can for that individual. Because in so you show respect for the individual, and you show respect for the ritual and what it stands for. And then there's performance. Honestly, some people can do ritual better than others. It's just the way life's about. Some people are more comfortable in that, and you should try to seek to find people that wish to do it. In some cases, certain officers are required to do it for certain parts, and well, that's part of the job. But the performance is not meant to be how good of an actor you are. It's about how well can you express that ritual? How well can you express that meaning? Because it's not about you. It's about the ritual and those who are undergoing it. And lastly, pride. Pride. Conducting rituals is about showing what is important to you, what's important to your organization, what holds you together, and why are you who you are, and why are you part of what you are. So, is ritual as an action, or do you just do it as an act? Do you do it often, or do you only do it occasionally? We unfortunately have some chapters who not everybody who completes membership associate or membership orientation either is initiated or chooses initiated. The line is, well, I don't have to get nationalized. I'm a member of Omega chapter or whatever else. No, you're not truly a member of that chapter unless you've been initiated, a full member that is. Of course, we become members as an associate. So don't put it off. I've known of chapters who have waited 2, 3, 4, 5 years because, well, we just never got around to initiating people, and they've graduated and gone on with their life, and actually, in a sense, got lost to the fraternity. And are you sincere or are you silly? I mean, I will be honest, I've been in ritual situations, both in the fraternity or outside, something happens. And either you start smiling, or I've had to literally bite down on my hand not to laugh one time. And okay, it happened. But it mattered. And we try to do the best we can, and we've actually restarted that time for that particular ceremony because we were trying to do it with the greatest sincerity. We wanted it to be done well, and so we did. So all this comes to the point that the rituals are part of who we are as members of Phi Kappa Tau. In a sense, the rituals are stages on the journey to brotherhood. Stages. And within those stages, the stages are also for a brother, for a chapter, and for the entire fraternity. Each one of those go through stages, and each one of those are encompassed in a ritual. Let's take a few moments to look at each. But before going forward, I'd like to make the point that the recent pandemic has really caused some issues with how can we conduct ritual well given social distancing and other restrictions. And that is a difficult thing, but there are ways of accommodating it. It might be changing locations where a ritual occurs. It might be limiting the number of people that are participating. It might be extending certain aspects of it. There are ways that ritual could still be performed properly, performed respectfully, and performed well. But it does take some accommodations. If you have any questions about what can be done about that, I encourage you to contact our national office or myself personally, and we'll see what we can do to assist you in this matter. But first off, the stages in a journey. And the first stage, of course, is a brother and his association. You become a member of Phi Kappa Tau fraternity not when you're initiated. That's because you become a fully initiated member. You become a member that when you take that first oath with your associate class, your willingness to become a part of an organization, to accept its rules, to accept its guidelines, and that happens in association. I'll go back to the novitiate. Either we approached you or you approached us, or whatever way we came to a point where we offered you a chance to join us and you said yes. And we acknowledge that chance at the association ceremony, which, by the way, can be public. You can invite friends, family, academic people from the college, whatever you want to witness that. There's nothing within the association ceremony that involve the cardinal principles per se or other secrets of brotherhood. So quite often is a way of acknowledging who's joining your organization, the start of the journey. Of course, you have the initiation itself. And our situation for this program limits the amount of time I can talk about the initiation ceremony itself. Of course, it's important, and there's aspects of that really we'd like to be able to spend some time emphasizing it, but that has to be done in smaller groups and in different settings. But as I mentioned earlier, you're only initiated once. You're only initiated once. And I pray whatever that was for you, if it has happened or if it is going to happen in the future, that it was a peak moment in your life. A sense of accomplishment, a sense of joining, a sense of, yes, I'm now something I was not before. But that's a part of that journey. And again, I say, I've unfortunately known of chapters where the ritual team gets together to do the initiations and the rest of the brotherhood really can't be bothered. They're watching a football game while a couple people are, quote, doing what they got to do down in the basement. No. Each initiation should be an event for the entire chapter to witness and be part of. Now again, with pandemic and COVID, you might have to change how many people can be around and all that. But that doesn't mean that the entire brotherhood cannot be in one way or another involved in some of the initiations. The next part, there's a graduation ceremony, which quite often is not done in our chapters. It's basically at the last meeting for the seniors graduating, and the ceremony is a reaffirmation of the oath that they took initially at their initiation, and reminding them that the responsibilities and duty as a brother does not end at the graduation. Does not end at graduation, and an encouragement for that brother to play an active role in whatever manner is appropriate after leaving school. And the last individual ceremony, well, that's the funeral rite. I was never prouder of my own chapter, which is Omicron at Penn State University. When a group of undergraduates conducted the funeral rite for one of their members who was killed in an accident during the summer. They gathered at the funeral. They gathered as a community. They expressed their condolences to the family. And they conducted the ritual itself, which is a simple ritual, usually two brothers speaking, and then placing a red carnation or greenery or some other token, but talking about the love that unites us and our faith. I know in that particular case, I spoke to the parents afterwards, and they were so touched at that group of men, and they realized that they were hurting also, showed such respect and love for their departed son. It's a sign of respect, and quite often, if the undergraduates are involved, they may not even know the alumnus who has died. But again, the funeral rite is a reminder that the bonds of brotherhood do not end at death. Well, that's a brother's journey. The next thing we'll look at is what's a chapter's journey. And a chapter starts, of course, as a colony. So when you're organized, and for whatever reason or from whatever group, you start your journey as an organization in Phi Kappa Tau. My own chapter, Omicron at Penn State, was a local called Delta Tau Omega for a year before becoming a member of Phi Kappa Tau. And they became a Phi Kappa Tau chapter in part because they met other men who were Phi Taus who had just joined, and they told them about this national organization, and they reached out to the national organization, and the national organization looked back and said, yes, we can do this. You have a common principles to what we do. And Delta Tau Omega became the 15th chapter of Phi Kappa Tau, soon to be 99 years ago. But that's the start of the journey, just like an associate is the start of the journey for a brother. Every chapter meeting is actually a part of the ritual. We do ritual at the beginning and at the end of it, but it's also that common that we're gathering as a community to work together, to plan together, to celebrate together. Sometimes within that chapter meeting there's stresses and there's strains, there's disagreements, but that's okay, as long as at the end of the chapter meeting we leave as united brotherhood. Officer installation. There's a ceremony, most chapters use this, some do not, and when a person assumes an office, they take an oath. And the oath basically is a reminder to them of their responsibilities and a promise from the chapter to support them. Now, many chapters do this when a whole new executive council comes in or a change of administration, but it's actually suitable for any elective office within the chapter, because we each have that responsibility to do our job the best we can, but at the same time, the chapter has a responsibility to support you in your efforts. And the chapter itself. You know, each of our chapters is unique. They each have a unique story of how they became a chapter of Phi Kappa Tau, how have they, achievements they've had, the problems they've had, the losses they've had. But within each of them, what's unite that first brother who joined that colony that became a chapter and the most recent brother who became a member is the ritual that we have experienced together. They may live in different chapter houses, they may have different organizations, but they both come from that same core ritual. And then we go to a fraternity's journey. Well, each chartering is part of that journey. It's like a brick in a wall. Each of the chapters that join is another part of our journey. And when a chapter closes for whatever reason, it's a hurt. It's a hurt not only to that chapter, of course, it's a hurt to all other chapters in the fraternity itself, because one of those bricks, one of those parts of us are not with us anymore. Sometimes it's for a short term, unfortunately, and sometimes it's permanent. But each one of those are part of the journey. We have a ceremony at our major events called a closing ceremony. 4 candles are lit representing the 4 founders. Brothers come forward to receive lights from that candle. And then we circle the room with men carrying candles and lit and sing the Brotherhood song. It's a very powerful moment because we stand shoulder to shoulder with our brothers from whatever chapter they came from and whatever age they may be. And within the circle are usually our guests, our friends, and our family. And that around them is that unity, which is Phi Kappa Tau. Every chapter is part of our ritual. It's part of our journey. From Alpha, the oldest, to the newest colony we have. They're part of that journey, and we pray that all of them are successful and strong. We know that's not going to happen. Not everybody will be successful. But we as a fraternity and we who live the ritual seek to do the best for all that we have. And finally, every brother, every individual brother, every associate, everyone who has joined Phi Kappa Tau in any way is part of this journey. For some, they may even have stopped as an associate and chose to go no further, for whatever reason. For others, they've been an alumnus with 50, 60, 70 years and still serve in the fraternity in many ways. But they've each been part of the journey. They've each been part of who we are and what we're called to be. I started this program with a quote from a church official, Benedict de Nursia, who taught and lived 1600 years ago. I'm going to close with a quote from a man who died less than 60 years ago. He was Pope John the 23rd. And in John the 23rd's quote, he said, "In essential matters, unity. In doubtful matters, liberty. In all matters, charity." In who we are, the core principles, the cardinal principles of Phi Kappa Tau, we have to have unity. We have to have a common cause. We have to have a common belief system. We have to have a common aim. We're different chapters, and there's room for diversity in our chapters, both with our members and with our chapters themselves. But in all matters, charity. And here charity is not donating money, though that's a good thing to do. Here charity comes from the Latin root of caritas, which means love. And how we conduct our lives and how we treat other people, we have to do that based on love of each other as fellow human beings. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to questions and other speaking with you in the future. Take care. Bye.
We will now transition to a Q&A with Brother Dave Lipinski,